Welcome back to another Genre with JB. It's been a minute. I know that it's been a little bit since I recorded my last video, so thanks for bearing with me, everybody. My teaching schedule has been pretty crazy the last several weeks going into the spring. A lot of camps. Not only am I a commercial artist, but I'm also an arts educator, so I teach remotely and I teach at quite a few places in person, plus trying to get my own revamped personal website off the ground, so been pretty busy. So I appreciate everybody bearing with me. Let's get right into it. So last week we talked about Boba Fett's character arc and how I think that he's basically sort of assumed this sort of character archetype of the cerebral mafia don, right? Very much clearly based off figures like Michael Corleone, and that he's gone through a sort of metamorphosis. Basically, him coming out of the Sarlacc pit and befriending the Tuskens, sort of a metaphor for the larger change that's going on with his character from the original trilogy through to the TV series, and also, throughout the TV series itself, is you can see that he's basically sort of more and more assuming this new sort of outlook on life. And you contrast that with Fennec Shand, his right-hand person. And it's really interesting to see how Fennec is sort of not the devil on his shoulder, but his almost like a ghost of Boba past telling him, hey, you need to rule through fear, you need to do this, you need to do that. And he's sort of going his own way. He's listening to her advice, but he's really sort of trying to forge his own path. He's taking what she says into account, but really, taking that knowledge and doing his own thing with it. So that's pretty cool. And I will say with this next episode, it is a little bit jarring that we go from Boba's story to a completely different episode that doesn't deal with Boba at all. I think that is jarring, and I think that is kind of a legitimate criticism of the show, that it switches gears so abruptly. But I will say this: I think again that isn't necessarily the fault of the story that the creators are trying to tell, especially having seen the episodes all the way through to the finale at this point. I've seen episodes 5, 6, and 7, and it does tie together in the end. But I think it gets back to my initial observation that these episodes are not long enough, and B, there's just not enough of them. I mean, if you go back again to previous eras of TV, you had Star Trek The Next Generation. They would give you like 20, 25 episodes in a season. There's no reason Disney, with all of their money and all of the profits they rake in, especially since they've jacked up prices in other divisions of the company, being like the parks and everything else, and all this stuff ties into each other. There's no reason that they can't set aside a bigger budget for their TV studio division. And if it's the actors' salaries that are an issue, you just sit down and talk turkey with them, try to negotiate something with them. I mean, I'm not a studio executive. I'm sure it's way harder than I just made it sound, but be that as it may, do what you got to do, right? I think that you need more room to breathe. That being said, I think that the economy of storytelling is excellent, given that we only have 7 episodes to tell this entire story of Boba Fett. And that's my only quibble, really, being that we spend maybe a little too much time with Mando a little too quickly, whether we don't kind of ease in, we don't bring him in a little bit earlier and then ease into maybe one Mando-centric episode over and have the season stretch over maybe 15 or 20 episodes. But, being that the creators did decide to bring Mando in, that gets back to something else that I mentioned in my last video, which is that this version of this Mando character that we've been introduced to by Favreau and Filoni is very much the version of sort of the answer to the EU's Dark Empire Boba Fett. I mean, this Mando is ruthless. He kills people. He's got a code of he's definitely more of an anti-hero. he's not just a cold-blooded killer like Kevin J. Anderson's Dark Empire Boba Fett was. Or I believe I would say that Kevin J. Anderson and Tom Veitch both contributed to that character. I actually think Tom Veitch wrote a lot of the Dark Empire books, but Kevin J. Anderson and Tom Veitch, I think, were collaborating, communicating back and forth together. So, I think basically since they've taken Boba Fett down this road of sort of redemption and becoming more of of this daimyo that protects the people in his neighborhood and doesn't get involved in anything illicit, we've transferred a lot of the more sort of aggressive, ruthless characteristics over to Mando, where Mando kind of gets his hands dirty. He gets into the mud with his enemies, and we see him in this latest episode on the amazing Halo ring inspired space station, just doing work on these Clatonian meatpacking workers. And he pretty much has gone right back to his old bounty hunting ways in the absence of Grogu, which I think is interesting. Grogu is sort of the tether to his humanity, which is another wonderful thing that they've set up here, that what grounds Mando and gives him his humanity is this sort of being of pure innocence and light, which is Grogu. And where Grogu, he's teaching Grogu, but I think Mando is also learning just as much from Grogu as Grogu is learning from him, right? So, we find Mando in the beginning of this episode, and he's trying to find his covert. He's trying to find Paz Vizsla and the Armorer, and they're on this space station. They've kind of regrouped and set up a new base of operations, and he collects on this bounty and finds out where they are, goes down there, and he meets Paz, and he also meets the Armorer, and we get this interesting backstory on the larger history of what happened during the Mandalorian Purge, and the history of the Darksaber, which I find very interesting. And I think that what this is really doing is setting up a lot of seeds for Mando Season 3. Clearly, that's what they're doing, and I'm on board for it. I mean, I like how Mandalore kind of looks like it did from the Clone Wars. There's a little continuity there with the Dome City. We also get, I believe, Bryce Dallas Howard directed this episode. I could be wrong. Like I said, I had to go back and rewatch this episode because it's been a while since I put a review out. But I really, really, really enjoyed seeing just a different side of the world of Star Wars, and I love the world building and the lore building that they're setting down in this episode. And what this episode to me is I won't say it's an interlude in a book, because I don't think the creators, again, gave themselves enough time to use that as an out. I do think that, we cut away from Boba a little too quick, and that is a criticism I have of the show. But I will say that as much as I don't like that, I like what we got in the episode in terms of good Star Wars storytelling a lot more than any sort of things I didn't like in terms of, moving away and shifting focus from Boba Fett as a character. I mean, we've gotten the sort of nuts and bolts of Boba Fett's character arc. Now this is more of a setup for actions that are going to culminate in the finale and pay off in the finale, right? And also setting up, in the space of only 7 episodes, you got to remember that they've set themselves up here with a challenging task, because they only have those 7 episodes. How are we going to set up seeds that will come to blossom in Mando Season 3? They do a great job. We get, again, I'm a big Halo fan, and I love that we see sort of technology being leveraged in this way in the Star Wars universe, where, they have the enough control over gravitational technology to do something like an orbital ring, and we get so much lush detail, and the digital matte paintings that they've come up with are spectacular for these scenes. As an artist, I think that the tapestry they've woven is amazing. And it's just really nice to see the sort of care and attention to detail and the money that's being thrown out on the table as far as special effects by ILM and Lucasfilm. Really stunning. And the core, and I didn't even get to the Paz Vizsla, excuse me, I can't talk today. And Mando Darksaber fight, the fight for the Darksaber, and we get a little more insight into Paz. And I think that, it is possible some people are theorizing the armor could become an antagonist. I don't ultimately think that is going to happen. I think Paz Vizsla may become an antagonist, believe it or not. I think that I don't know if Jon Favreau plays Paz Vizsla. I think I think he had a cameo as Paz in Mando season 1 under the helmet. That was Jon Favreau running around, which is kind of cool. But in any event, they do a great job sort of like differentiating the Din Djarin's fighting style from Paz's fighting style. Paz is more of a tank and Din is more sort of light on his feet and more of an outside fighter. I appreciated that. And I like the idea of the Darksaber, not only as this metaphor for, assuming the mantle of the leadership of all the peoples of Mandalore, and the metaphor for Din, at this point, assuming his destiny, picking up his destiny, and meeting his destiny head on, but also the fact that the sword is sort of a living being. It's sentient in a way. It's got a will of its own, and it's something larger than just being part of the Force. I mean, because clearly people that are non-Force sensitive can wield this thing, but they have to have the right mindset, which is sort of something as a martial artist myself, I really appreciate that. You have to have the right mindset of a leader to be able to wield this thing, and that's going to go through. I think that ties into Din's, again, his larger arc, finding Grogu, helping him be an anchor to his humanity, but also balancing that with the fact that he needs to now not stop running away from his destiny and lead his people. And just like Grogu, he needs Grogu. He needs to also be there for Grogu, and Grogu needs him. They need each other. I think that's a sort of a great. Those are great themes. This idea of finding a tribe, belonging, and that ties into Boba's journey of finding a tribe, right? The Tuskens, and now this sort of budding family that he's building with Fennec and the Mod Squad, and we're seeing all these sort of moving parts come together. And at this point, I think I think Santo is with them as well. Black Chrysanthemum is also joined forces with Boba, and I hope I'm not getting my episodes crossed there. But I think it's in not episode 6, but the subsequent not episode 5, but the subsequent episode when we get to Mando, getting his ship. He got his ship in episode 5. Met Peli Mata, met back up with Peli. Some great comedic moments there. And then at the end, we finally get the meeting with Fennec, where Fennec tells Din that she needs Din's help, and Din agrees, says it's on the house. I owe Boba a debt. I thought that was really cool. I think that the sort of bromance going on between Boba and Din is really cool, and their differing views on the Mandalorian Creed is also interesting. But it's really in episode 6 where I had a smile on my face from ear to ear, because we finally get Luke Skywalker. We see Luke Skywalker training Jedi students a la, the Timothy Zahn books, right? Like, we're getting these things on live action that I pictured in my head as a kid when I was reading the Zahn books and reading the Jedi Academy trilogy books by Kevin J. Anderson and reading the Tom V.H. Dark Empire material, as well as the supplementary material by Kevin. And, we're getting all that now in live action. I think that's really cool. And something else that I think they're doing, based on my sort of nose to the ground, listening to the rumblings in the Star Wars grapevine, is they're bringing back a live action Ezra Bridger. I think it's the guy who played Aladdin, who I really like. I think he did a great job as the live action Aladdin. They're bringing him back. They already have Ahsoka being played by Rosario Dawson. So I think what they're setting up is sort of this multi-TV show saga that will culminate with Grand Admiral Thrawn. And we're going to get a version of the Heir to the Empire books with Jin and Ezra and Ahsoka being the primary protagonists, and possibly Luke being heavily involved as well. Um, but I think that's where we're going with things, and that's really cool. Um, I will say that again, we got 2 full episodes of not a lot of Boba, but while I'm sort of not crazy about that, um, given the constraints that the creators have put themselves under, I really like what we got as far as just Star Wars content is concerned. So I'm willing to kind of, in my opinion, the pros of the overall story that we're getting outweigh the cons of the way they're going about it in terms of the execution. Um, I think that it was really nice seeing, Luke give Grogu that choice at the end of episode 7. Um, Either you choose the lightsaber or you choose the armor that the armorer, you know, that the armorer in the previous episode made for Din. And Din gifted this set of Mandalorian Beskar armor to Grogu, and Luke presents Grogu with this gift at the end and says you have to choose either Yoda's lightsaber, you have to either walk the path of the Jedi, or you have to walk the path of the Mandalorian. Because, as Din correctly notes to the armorer in the previous episode, the Jedi Creed and the Mandalorian Creed are opposite. The Mandalorian Creed is all about loyalty and attachment to friends. The Jedi Creed is all about, thinking outward and not thinking of yourself or your attachments at all, but thinking completely of others and being unattached emotionally to any one thing or place. So I think that's an interesting sort of tug of war they're setting up for Grogu there. I know I'm skipping around a bit, but overall, I really like where things are going because I know the next episode from seeing it, but also even before I saw episode 7, I had guessed we're going to jump right back into the gang war with Boba, and all these things are going to get paid off. One last thing we get is we get Cad Bane at the end of episode 6, and wow, what a way to do a cliffhanger. Really, really enjoyed that cliffhanger. Thought they did a great job with live action Cad Bane. And knowing what I know, it's a shame we're not going to get more of Cad Bane. But you never know, Cad Bane could still be alive. So with that said, we are running to the end of this video, but I hope you enjoyed another Genre Art with JB Book of Boba Fett review. These were my impressions for episode 5 and 6. Please share, like, and subscribe. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.